You wake up and stare at the ceiling knowing you should get up, but your limbs feel like concrete. Not because you don't care. You care too much about everything. You replay conversations from yesterday, analyze your to-do list, think about the messages you haven't replied to. A storm of guilt brews quietly while you lie there, still unmoving. It's not laziness. It's emotional exhaustion wearing the mask of stillness. The world tells you that success comes from hustle, from waking up early, exercising, checking off goals. Productivity is worshipped. So when you can't move, when brushing your teeth feels like a quest, shame creeps in. You scroll through social media and see others crushing it, and it fuels the voice in your head whispering, "You're lazy." But you're not. You're depleted. There's a difference. Laziness implies a lack of desire. Emotional exhaustion is when the desire is there, burning, but there's nothing left in the tank. You want to be better, do more, engage. But everything costs energy. And you've been running on fumes for too long. You're not avoiding your responsibilities because you don't care. You're avoiding them because they feel like cliffs instead of steps. You used to be different. You remember that version of yourself, you energized, motivated, curious, the version that used to stay up late, dreaming, and wake up excited. That person still exists. They're not gone. They're just buried under the weight of too much for too long. And that weight isn't just from tasks or responsibilities. It's the emotional labor you carry in silence. The pressure to appear fine drains you more than anything. You smile when you don't feel like it, listen when you're too tired to absorb, say, "I'm okay," because explaining how you're really doing feels like a job in itself. That false front, it's heavy. And when you carry it every day, your body starts waving red flags. It makes you stop. Not because it's lazy, but because it's screaming for rest. People who say you just need to push through don't understand the kind of tired you're dealing with. This isn't fixed with caffeine or a motivational quote. This isn't about being unmotivated. It's about being overextended, emotionally tangled in 1,000 invisible threads. And when you finally pause, people only see the pause. They don't see what led to it. You cancel plans not because you don't want to see people, but because the thought of small talk makes your chest tighten. You delay tasks not because you're irresponsible, but because your brain is like a browser with 20 tabs open, and every tab is stuck. You're not lazy. You're overwhelmed, and the worst part is, you blame yourself for it. You tell yourself you should be better, faster, stronger. You guilt yourself for resting, for needing more time, for saying no. But what if your exhaustion is a message? What if it's your mind and body begging you to stop pretending you're a machine? What if the fact that you're still trying, even when you're drained, Eki, is proof you're anything but lazy? When people say you've changed, it cuts deep. Eki, they mean well, but they don't know the cost of keeping it all together. You've become quieter, slower, maybe even distant. But it's not because you've become apathetic. You've just been stretched so thin for so long, you don't have the energy to explain the pain. You wish someone would notice the small things. The way you force yourself out of bed, even when it feels impossible. The way you answer messages days late. Not because you don't care, but because you're scared of saying the wrong thing. The way you cancel plans, then sit alone, wondering if you're pushing people away. These aren't signs of laziness. They're signs of silent battles. And you crave rest, not because you're lazy, but because you're starved of peace. You're tired of pretending, tired of showing up half full, tired of putting others first, always. You're tired of being tired, and yet you keep going, even if it's slow, even if it's not perfect, even if nobody claps for you. That's not laziness, that's resilience, masked as survival. Ha! You look around your room and see the chaos that's slowly taken over. Clothes you meant to fold, dishes you promised to wash tomorrow, emails left unanswered, half-finished notes, unfinished thoughts. But these aren't signs of someone who doesn't care. These are the traces of someone too drained to keep up with the illusion of control. You want to fix it all, the mess, the silence, the heaviness, but you can't start. Not because you don't want to, because starting means confronting all the things you've been holding back. And right now, you're just trying to stay afloat. When you do find the strength to do something, even something small, it feels like a mountain. Folding a shirt, cleaning the sink, sending a reply. You do it, and your body feels like it ran a marathon. It shouldn't be this hard, you think. And you wonder, what's wrong with me? But nothing's wrong. You're responding to pressure, stress, emotion, all piled on without release. Your body and mind are working overtime just to regulate all the invisible burdens nobody sees. You keep telling yourself that tomorrow will be different, that you'll wake up early, feel motivated, finally catch up. But tomorrow comes, and your bones feel the same. And when you do try, when you force yourself into motion, there's always a crash afterward. Because you're not healing, you're pushing, you're surviving. There's a difference. One recharges you, the other just postpones the breakdown. You're not lazy for needing more rest than others. You're not weak for feeling things deeply. You're not broken because some days you can't function like you used to. You are quite honestly exhausted in a way that most people don't talk about. Because society doesn't reward rest, it punishes it. Productivity is glorified, but recovery? That's labeled weakness. No one congratulates you for choosing to nap instead of pushing through a headache. No one celebrates you for canceling a meeting to protect your mental health. No one applauds you for staying in bed and letting yourself cry. But those choices, they're not lazy. They're necessary. And they take courage. Courage to listen to yourself. Courage to stop running on empty. You've likely spent years being the reliable one, the friend who shows up, the student who gets good grades, the coworker who says yes to everything. And slowly, that expectation became your prison. You learned to perform, even when your internal world was falling apart. And now, when you pause, when you slow down, people say you're not yourself. But what if this slower, quieter version is yourself? Just finally being honest? You weren't meant to go full speed every day. No one is. But especially not someone who feels deeply, thinks constantly, and gives generously. Those parts of you that make you loving and thoughtful, they also make you susceptible to burnout. Your empathy is beautiful, but it's also exhausting when you forget to leave any for yourself. There are days when you finally start to do something, open the laptop, pick up a book, organize the mess, and your brain suddenly short circuits. You stare. You freeze. You feel like crying for no reason. That isn't laziness. That's overload. That's your nervous system waving a flag saying, please slow down. Please stop asking me to perform when I need repair. And still, even in your exhaustion, you show up. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not like before, but you still love. You still hope. You still care. So much it aches. The world may not see that, but I hope you do. Because that effort, that invisible, quiet persistence, that's not laziness. That's you refusing to give up, even when it's hard to keep going. If someone else told you everything you're carrying, everything they're trying to hold together while feeling like they're falling apart, you wouldn't call them lazy. You'd wrap them in compassion. You'd say, you're doing your best. So why is it so hard to say that to yourself? You're not lazy. You are healing slowly, unevenly, sometimes with setbacks, but you are healing. And that, more than anything, deserves patience, not punishment. There's a quiet grief in losing parts of yourself to exhaustion. Not just the energy, but the joy, the spontaneity, the curiosity that once lit you up. You catch glimpses of it sometimes. In a memory, a song, a laugh that slips out unexpectedly. But mostly it feels like you're watching your old self from a distance, like someone you used to know. And no one talks about how much that hurts. You try to fake your way back, to go through the motions. You smile when you're asked how you're doing. You nod when people make plans. You say, I'll be there, even when you know you won't. Because you want to be that person again. The one who followed through, who felt light, who didn't have to drag herself through every hour. But pretending doesn't bring her back. It only drains you more. The truth is, your exhaustion isn't your fault. It's not about willpower or laziness or lack of ambition. It's the cost of being strong for too long without rest, of pushing through too many I'm fine days when you weren't, of carrying emotional weight that no one saw. And if no one sees it, they can't validate it, so it festers quietly until even the smallest task feels enormous. But here's the part no one tells you. Healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like sleeping too much, or crying out of nowhere, or saying no to things you used to love. Sometimes it's messy, nonlinear, frustrating. You take 2 steps forward and fall back again. You feel better for a day, then hit a wall the next. And through it all, that voice in your head whispers, you should be doing more. But should is the language of burnout, of disconnection, of internalized pressure to be useful instead of whole. You weren't born to chase checklists. You were born to feel, to connect, to create, to breathe. And you can't do any of that if you're constantly trying to outrun your own fatigue. Sometimes healing begins the moment you stop calling yourself lazy, when you stop equating your worth with your productivity, when you start asking, what do I need, instead of what should I be doing, when you learn to sit with the stillness, even when it scares you, especially when it scares you, because in the stillness you meet your real self, the one who isn't defined by accomplishments or energy levels, the one who's still worthy on the day she does nothing, the one who deserves love and kindness not because of what she produces, but simply because she is. And yes, there will still be days when everything feels heavy, when your mind spirals, when you forget that you're allowed to rest. On those days, try to remember this. You are not lazy for needing a break. You're not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You're not broken because your energy doesn't match the world's pace. You are a human being in a noisy, demanding world. A world that rarely stops to ask how you're really doing. But I hope you ask yourself that. I hope you answer honestly. I hope you let yourself have slower mornings, longer breaths, gentler goals. Not forever. Just for now. Just until the light comes back. Because it will. It always does. You'll feel it again, that spark, that curiosity, that lightness that once lived in your chest. It's not gone. It's resting, just like you. And when it returns, you'll move differently. Not faster, not louder, but with more care, with more wisdom, with a deeper understanding that rest isn't a luxury. It's a right. That healing isn't a setback. It's sacred. So, no, you're not lazy. You're emotionally exhausted. And you're still here, still breathing.